And now, here is your host, Ivan Raiklin.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, it might be a little bit of a bumpy ride today on the Raiklin report, but I have quite a bit to share with you today. As you may know, I was at the National Conference of State Legislatures, and now I'm en route. I was deliberating whether or not to stay there and ask a few questions of our beloved Mikey Pence. And I was going to ask him the following questions, which are outlined in my tweet from earlier today. And it's pretty simple. Sir, Mr. Failed Vice President, can you tell us why you violated Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, the 12th Amendment, and the 25th Amendment to our United States Constitution? And then his security detail would have probably come in my direction and said, no, Mikey Pence does not like First Amendment activity in his vicinity. So we're going to have to ask you to leave since this is a private event. And Mikey Pence is going to make the case to the American public how he's going to steal the 2024 election with his buddies Chris Sununu in New Hampshire that helps to leverage that the LHS, the company that's headquartered in Salem, New Hampshire, that runs 6 states elections in New England. But again, not for the general election. You don't hear about that yet. The primary election, and then that same company runs the software that they use on LHS systems is deviant voting systems that run elections in 28 other states. And who basically has a lot of leverage over those 28 states' electoral systems? Uh, well, Robin Voss is the president of the NCSL, the guy that invited Mike Pence to be the keynote speaker. Yep, Robin Voss. If you don't know who that is, look him up. He's the Speaker of the House of Wisconsin. And he's really good friends with Paul Ryan, who serves on the board of Faux News, the company the disinformation purveyor that would convince you that have an R by your name to believe that Mike Pence's electoral victory in the primary next year is legitimate. And then just maybe in those certain states, the party structure would allow for the electoral outcome to be commensurate with those individuals that I just laid out without that election company facing any consequences for its electoral selection. See how they can play it out, sir?
Yes.
Ma'am up front? Yep. Do you disagree with my analysis that that is a possibility? I think would agree that that is a possibility. It's leveraging all your levers of power, discretionary, and then applying a little bit of immorality and unethical behavior to it to create the adjudicative outcome of your choice. You could argue that it's not illegal because guess what? Those in power, what do they say? Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, I'm going to repeat what I said yesterday. 2 nights ago, I happened to stumble across intentionally Robin Voss. And I asked him, I said, sir, you have you have a lot of discretionary power because of the 2 seats that you're in. President of NCSL and the Speaker of the House in Wisconsin, the longest standing Republican Speaker of the House in the nation. And then you got here in front of you talking to you is Ivan Raiklin, uh, just a simple attendee to this conference. I'm pleading with you, sir, as just a citizen of this country. Can you please commit to allowing voters to vote for the outcome of their choosing without manipulation in between? Amidst all the AI and all the machine potential manipulation. And then now, can you please convince me and the rest of society that your buddy Paul Ryan's $787 million transfer from Faux News over to deviant voting systems, can you convince me that that was not a bribe? And what was his response? Ivan, do you believe in capitalism? Well, as a conservative, I believe what I also mentioned is I believe in lawful, moral, and ethical capitalism. And in this instance, while it's great, yep, a private company can divert $787 million to a voting machine company that then creates an adjudicative outcome to another private company known as the Republican Party, basically make a result of their choosing about it. That's the beauty of it from their perspective, right? That's how I interpreted his response. Well, to me, that's disgusting. And so now we have to come up with a play so that the electoral outcome is not commensurate with a small group of people that can finance the electoral outcome, but actually the result of the actual individual primary voters. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Anywho, what else happened at this conference? I talked about it yesterday, so I'm not going to recap it. Take a look at the episode yesterday. I just wanted to hit the highlight there. But I think the best part of me attending this conference was meeting two patriots from Kentucky. I don't know. You guys want to be on my show?
Sure, why not?
Well, in that case, I'm going to have to backbench it, and you're going to have to introduce yourself by taking this phone and getting in the frame and telling us who you are.
I'm Steve Nipper. I'm a former Secretary of State candidate for Kentucky. Been involved in election integrity with my good friend Adrian Southworth here, who's a state senator.
State senator.
Yes, I'm State Senator Adrian Southworth from Kentucky, and of course I was attending the NCSL conference, and I heard Ivan going off about hand-counted ballots, and it's hard not to magnetize to your one friend in the room. They're all fighting against the Swampocrats or whatever they are, and he did awesome. Excellent.
Can I elaborate on my question?
Yeah, go ahead now.
Senator, if I may?
Give you the
I request, will the gentlelady yield a few seconds of your time to the
Yes,
back-seated
sir, I shall
attendee? So my question to the Secretary of State of Tennessee was, sir, in light of the discussion about artificial intelligence, in light of the recent $787 million, what other people call a bribe or a payoff, what I call a settlement, of course, right? In light of all of that, and what happened in Arizona, where it takes months for this third world county to count the vote, even though they're using machines, can you give us any reasons of there being a downside to going to one-day in-person paper ballot hand count voter ID style of voting like we've been doing for hundreds of years prior to? And what was his response, Senator? I yield back.
He said, he got an answer out different ways, and he finally landed on, well, people in Tennessee want to know the results. They like the convenience of early voting. They want to know the results like the night of. They don't want to wait for a month or weeks or whatever for hand counting. And then Ivan correctly said, excuse me, sir, we're talking about 2 months and going on trying to figure out the results in Arizona with machines.
Yeah, so he wasn't a big fan. I mean, I just think that the reason why they want to stay on the machines, it's a lot of money, right? And goes to a few individuals and make financial windfall and gain. There's two things of benefit that people need to consider when you're running elections, hand count, paper ballot, all that, like we just described, is that more people are required to participate in the electoral process, more humans. And I get it. It may slow it down a little bit, and it'll also may be more prone to error. But when you have more people involved, the transparency increases exponentially. So I argue that the transparency of more involvement of humans is a kind of a check on the potential mass scale of manipulation that can be caused nationally through all 3,143 county and county equivalents using the machines. Whereas the more people that are involved, and if the rule is you can only be involved in the process of the election if you are a voter in that particular precinct or district,
There's enough.
you kind of have a little bit of skin in the game to make sure that it's clean.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
you're going to have to face your neighbors.
You had
That,
mentioned-
right?
Yeah, you mentioned about the more involvement in Kentucky, the reconciliation process, which is a bill that Adrian wanted to draft also. It's just basically the Board of Elections and the Secretary of State in the room
Yep.
that gets all the final counts, and they're just dole out anything they want. So they could say whatever they want. It may or may not even be the actual vote.
So that's disgusting. All right, what else happened? What was the highlights for you?
For me.
Oh, Senator.
Well, obviously I liked the Trey Hargett, Secretary of State from Tennessee question.
That's how we met, actually.
That's how we
Tell
met.
us about how we met.
That's how we met. Well, I heard your question and I was like, oh, cool, we have another friend in the room. And Trey Hargett is the Secretary of State who was the chair of the RSLC, Republican State Leadership Committee. They are the swamp hat group for, the Uniparty has two arms. So they're the Republican side of that. And he was the chair of the Secretary of State's segment of that. So to me, that means, you can rate him as basically the worst in the country. And my Secretary of State in Kentucky was the vice chair. So they're two pieces hot. First and second worst. So I've spent a decent amount of time. Steve and I were on election tour a couple years ago all over Kentucky. And we also went all over Tennessee. We did a few different states. Tennessee was the main one that we covered outside of our own states. Most coverage of any other state we've done. And so I learned a lot about Tennessee's voting laws and systems and kind of the way they do things. So it was really cool having Trey Hargett there at the conference to tell us how his election systems work and hearing that kind of stuff. And then the other big takeaway that I still need to look into further is this podcast that they were doing live at the conference. It was called High Turnout, Wide Margins. And we're seeing that all over the country right now, particularly in Kentucky, but I've heard from other states as well, where the margins are, it used to be, if they wanted to cheat or something, they need to still make it look realistic. So like 59 or like 51-49 type situation maybe.
Yeah, that's where you bring in faux news to basically convey to the country that, oh yeah, Mike Pence actually see how his poll numbers are increasing now that Governor Kemp and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger indicted or allowed the indictment to take place for Trump. So now we can start bumping the poll numbers for Mike Pence and then continuing to decrease the poll numbers for, I don't know, DeSantis maybe?
Yeah. So,
and then make sure that he's in that second position after they start to deflate the fake polls for Trump. And then it becomes President Pence and Vice President DeSantis. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing out ideas.
yeah,
I'm not stating
that
facts.
That sounds terrible. But in any event, this podcast, I didn't get to hear an episode there that really went into their clear mission. But I do know that the mainstream has been long-standingly talking about, and they're expecting, the world record turnout next year. And
Were they talking about 200% or 300% turnout?
well, they didn't specify a number, but I know what I've been discussing with the more local level.
We've been registering those in Mexico and Canada.
No, I mean, because you got to register the non-citizens.
Right.
You also have to register the bots, right?
That's exactly right.
The Russian bots, the algorithms.
They don't even need to be registered. They can vote without registration.
Right,
So
exactly.
that's kind of a waste of time.
Registration. What's this?
So, I mean, because certain parts I was hearing in New Hampshire and Pennsylvania, we're going at like 150% of the registered voters were voting. So, if it's going to be a high turnout this time, we're looking at 200 to 300%.
Well, that sounds awesome. So the thing is,
That sounds awful.
this wide margin thing is what really piqued my interest, because you can do machine manipulation for either one of these, but the actual marketing schemes of everyone should vote, that kind of thing, you just can't get a naturally occurring control on the results of an election being a wide margin. But we're seeing all over the country these margins are getting not just a little wider. We're talking used to be a fairly wide-ish race for two fairly evenly suited candidates. It was like 55-45. And, certain areas are just prone to whatever they are. Like Kentucky, where it's kind of a 50-50 type place in general. And when we have 70-30 races on the regular, that's getting to be a huge problem, because that just didn't used to happen like that.
Well, yeah, I think, if I may just interject, I think, to quote a famous doctor by the name of Dr. Douglas Frank, when you have 300% of registered voters voting, he uses the phrase, "That ain't natural, buddy." And use the term "natural," which kind of triggered in my brain that phrase.
That's
and then
exactly
when you have normally 50-50, and then all of a sudden there's not much of a demographic change other than increased bots and algorithms.
Well,
yeah, that ain't natural, buddy.
We were facing this. Steve just finished a race for Secretary of State, and you have the guy who was a one-man band campaign, and you have Steve that was running all over Tarnation, and then the other guy who's been running for a year at six-figure campaign, and everybody got pretty much the same number of votes. How is that possible? That does not happen.
Well, it's not only that; it's just these wide margin victories too. From the PR standpoint, after the election, they just drive that home. I noticed after my election, it was like, well, did you notice how much Michael Adams won by? Michael Adams won by 25 points, and that should be a clear, resounding victory for Michael. And so everybody should know that Michael won. And it's like, dude, I mean, that's so ridiculously stupid to even say that those were real results. When we did an MIA, we did a missing poster.
So he was running a Biden campaign.
It was a Biden-based
It was
campaign.
horrible.
Yes.
It was horrible.
Okay.
He never showed up for any debates, not one debate. Never showed up for anything, and he even told some people in northern Kentucky, where I'm from, that met. I was on Erlanger City Council, which is in northern Kentucky City, and some people in Erlanger were asking Mike Adams about the coming race between us, and he's like, you know what, I'm not worried about that. We have that taken care of already.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they're manipulating the system too, using all these different levers of power, discretionary, and then beyond. Okay.
Yeah, so one thing we need to look into is really this notion of wide margins, and that was what I was hoping to find out in the conference, which I didn't get to find out, but at least I'm familiar now with that group that is saying, hey, we want wide margins, and here's how we're getting them. That's the next question. What are they saying, and how are they thinking they're doing this?
So with only a few minutes I'm seeing here, actually no, we have about 8 minutes remaining in the show. So we talked. We got to kind of know each other a little bit. And then next thing I hear, you planned on going to another event.
Yes, so we're all together on the way to the...
And does that answer the question of why I'm sitting here with you two in this car?
In the car.
The audience is clamoring and dying to know. Can you tell us how the sequence of events occurred where we're sitting here together in this vehicle?
Just so everybody knows, Ivan's crazy, and so he said, I'm going to the election summit, and I said, the
Election Crime Bureau Summit.
Yeah, I've got to go tomorrow. I said, I can't stay at this conference. I've got to leave tomorrow for another conference. And so we both then figured out very quickly, of course, we knew which conference we were going to.
Senator Felt sorry for me and said that, you know what, you don't need to be flying.
I did
especially
not feel sorry for him. He decided to take advantage of the opportunity, because really there are no flights between Indianapolis and Springfield. It's kind of clunky. So
no, I had a flight set up, but
he
it wasn't direct, and I thought it would be good use of both of our times to kind of converse, discuss how we claw back to some semblance of normalcy in this country, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there you have it.
So it's been good. We appreciate him sharing us, and then we are now in the car in a very
The
unphotogenic situation here.
but the cerebral power in this car.
Cerebral. Like, we're firing on all cylinders, folks.
And then
Can
some.
you imagine 7 hours with me as I just go into a monologue nonstop?
Well, I gotta say, the one good thing, and everybody probably already knows this, but the reason why I've been so important in this whole movement is because he has an understanding of, and more of the analytics and the legal side, but he understands people and he understands situations and he understands the core concepts, both legally and factually. And so being able to kind of take the angles that are needed in each situation instead of just being a one-trick pony, I think is key and really move the needle. So I'm pretty excited to meet him and see his work.
Deep State Marauder.
And there's that.
There's that too. All right. So let's see. We're going to this summit. What are your biggest takeaways? What do you want to coming out of this on Thursday?
I love the title. Last year when Mike Lindell introduced the concept, I was like, yes, but I also didn't see it really take off in the direction very quickly that I was expecting, and I think that this year he is kind of going that direction at this point. So, time has passed. I don't like having waited another year to get this far forward, but I know myself and our team in Kentucky is making better strides now also, and it's just sometimes time gets killed so much. It's terrible, but I think that we're going to see a lot of cool stuff really, drawing lines in the sand, I think, with the topics that he's talking about.
Now you're going to be speaking, I'm hearing.
Yeah, Steve and I are presenting the Kentucky report.
Which won last year was undoubtedly hands down.
Can you give us a little teaser?
Well, we have we've continued some of the themes that we did last year. We're following up on our report with our final findings from recounts last year that we forced through courts of appeals up to Supreme Court in some cases, and then also our Open Records Army. Our Open Records Army has been working hard all over the state. Last year it was like several counties up to nearly half the state. This year was the whole entire state that was all getting records for, listings.
So you're going to give an overview of the successes that you've been able to achieve over the last year, right?
Yes.
Perfect. And that hits the hope component.
Right.
That
one of the
Mike
biggest,
wanted to
one of the
touch
biggest
on.
things was the fact that when I ran, it woke so many people up because everybody saw how hard that I ran, and I mean, I was everywhere, at least as far as the new media goes. I mean, I was on Bannon's show, I was on everybody's show. I mean, my commercials were going nationally, and there was no way the momentum that we had reflected in the results that came out. And so many people afterwards were like, wait a second.
That's not possible.
What this guy's saying must be true because there is no way Michael Adams won that race.
Yeah, it really reignited and expanded the election movement in Kentucky. So,
yeah.
Here we are.
So how many people from Kentucky do you expect other than you two at the event?
Got maybe, a dozen or 15 or so?
We got most of the election army, like most of the people who are on my campaign.
That'll be attending?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, this is going to be a big event.
A lot of the election army, Steve's spokespeople, a lot of those people.
Because last year, I mean, the first one was maybe 100, 150 people. Were you at the first one?
We were not. We had spies there.
The second one was at least triple in size.
Yeah.
If you're saying 15 people are showing up just from your state, I being massive.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, these are 15 key people. It's not really counting like spouses and stuff. I'm not sure who else bring a different.
No, I get it, but I think that's much bigger than if other states are doing similar things.
It's a little more organized team this year, for sure.
Okay.
Basically, in large part due to the momentum from Steve's campaign.
Perfect. So we have about 1 minute left. Any closing words of wisdom and what you should expect going into tomorrow?
I'd say stay tuned. There's probably going to be a lot of cool stuff just by the time this
Who are you most excited to see?
Who?
Yeah.
Well, you, of course.
Me, of course. So great. You too. I mean, we have the big names are going to be there. Obviously, are Mike Lindell, General Flynn, Steve Bannon, Lou Dobbs.
Oh yeah,
We are looking forward to
We're
Lou Dobbs.
excited to see him. He was our intro to our very first election tour.
But it's when he worked for CNN.
Yeah, we had the clip from like 2006.
Oh, from the Commie News Network. Then he went to
Yeah.
Faux Business.
Yeah.
And now he's independently actually being a critical thinker. He just had, who did he have on for an interview? I think it was, Chief Sund did an interview with him. So you can see that he's finally getting involved in the truth movement even further.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to actually. It's
And then
full circle.
Laura Loomer.
There.
Laura Loomer is supposedly going to be there too. She just spent an entire day with President Trump yesterday.
Nice.
So if you don't know who she is, you'll...
Tell President Trump to stop in. We'll say hi.
What's that?
Tell President Trump to stop in. We'll say hi.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. I'm not sure. All right, folks. Well, that's it for the Raiklin Report. Time's run short. Make sure you follow me on everything. Make sure you spell my last name right. Raiklin. Well, till tomorrow, folks. I'll be back. Tomorrow I'll be